had a great weekend. And I'm excited to be here with all of you on Monday, 11/11, which is actually Veterans Day. So in the chat, I want you to share with me any veterans that you are looking to pay tribute to today. Share it in the chat. Is there anyone out there that is a veteran that is on the call with us? If you are, thank you so much for all that you've done to serve. So big day today, 11/11. Well, I don't know what is going on with my screen. Every time I move to the chat, it disappears. So I am not going to worry about that because I do want to see all of these acknowledgements. I love it. Vietnam, good evening from Vietnam. My husband, Bill Tuggle, that's amazing. Dad's father-in-law, thank you to everybody. I love this. Both grandfathers, Dad Robert. This is big stuff. I don't think we were just Brandy and Don and I were, Brandy and Don, why don't you just come on? Because I'm screwing up the slides this morning for some reason. Hi.
Good morning.
Look at all of these though. Don and I were just saying earlier, you know, sometimes we take so much of this for granted, but all of these people that have been so close to us, whether it's grandparents, people that we know now, good friends, daughters, sons, brothers-in-law, look at all of that. All did something, I think, pretty remarkable for all of us. So, and I know Kevin Van Eck, he and I always laugh about, not laugh, but he always gets really shy when I talk about it, but he served in the military as well. So lots of good people to support. Well, I'm just going to stop the share because we only have one slide, which really introduces my two fabulous guests today here on Monday. We got the amazing Brandy Isaac, and that's Brandy with a Y because I keep spelling it wrong, from our Glenview office. Has been in the business for about 9 years, with At Properties for about 2 years now, I think, and really just has such a great approach on how she looks at her business, how, you know, I think she really dives deep into relationships, authenticity. So Brandy, good morning, welcome. I'm very excited to have you on and for you to be sharing just some golden nuggets with everybody that's out with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes. And then do we all know this guy, the fabulous Don Shea? I've known Don for quite a few years now.
We're working on
15 years. I know, that's wild. But have always appreciated your wise words, your great way at looking at the business. And, you know, I just think it's always a pleasure for everybody to hear from you. So here you are this morning with us. So
thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Don is trouble. Laura, you and I both know it. Don is the GOAT. Yes, he is. I love it. Look at all of these props. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's been going on. Post-Expo, we're gonna talk a little bit about Expo in a minute. Post-election, we know lots of emotions running high and low, left and right, all different ways. What a week we had last week, right, Don and Brandy? But I do want to ask you, Don, I'm going to kick off with you. As agents right now, we've got a lot of stuff swirling. I mean, we just had kind of a pretty big year, you know, from the NAR settlement. Expo was great. I think it re-energized all of us. Then we had, you know, a very, you know, momentous election, I think, last week. What's our responsibility, though, right now, Don, as agents, as we move past kind of such a strong, challenging year? What should agents be really thinking about doing or owning as they finish this year up strong, and just kind of get out of, I think, a lot of the emotion and a lot of the stuff that we've been dealing with this year?
Yeah, it's a really great question to go into the last month and a half of the year with, because a lot has happened. So I'm going to go back to Phil Jones from the Expo. And by the way, my recommendation for next year is to get another speaker who's written a book. So far, we're going 2 for 2. Will Gardera last year, and now Jones. But one of the phrases that Jones had, I really took to heart, which is we have to understand the context. You know, we talk a lot about how we help others and we help everybody, but I think coming out of last week, we have to acknowledge and really embrace how we feel, good, bad, or ugly. I mean, it was an emotional response that a lot of people had to that, to the election. And I think more importantly than anything, we have to commit to first taking care of ourselves. Um, Amy, you had a great analogy last week when we were talking, and it's kind of like the announcement on an airplane. Regardless of who you're traveling with, you got to put your air mask on. Yeah, they have the air mask on first, because otherwise you can't help anybody if you're incapacitated too. So, really, I think we have to embrace and understand, look to what actually happened and what it means to us. Frankly, one of the most admirable traits about real estate agents is how much we want to help people. We get engaged in one of the most monumental decisions of their lives. They're about to spend a lot of money, but there's an emotion because they're buying a new home. They're, looking at where they raise a family, where they're going to make memories. But the reality is, since June of 22, this has been a tough market. I don't think many people would really argue with me on that. But when interest rates spiked and everything got a little more, I'll use the word dynamic, it was tougher. And, even this year, it's not unusual to talk to somebody who's lost a deal or whose deal flow is down, things of that sort. And yet we go through it all and, we get up tomorrow morning and the first thing we want to do is take care of somebody, somebody we're going to meet. But I think that puts you right in the middle of an incredible array of emotions, everything from outright anxiety all the way through to the euphoria. Oh my God, I sold my house. I've got to find someplace to move to, hey, I got the deal. Now let's close on it. And, really think about the closing table, all the smiles are around there. But we also deal with confusion and anxiety, and uncertainty. So we have to really recognize what's going on. One of the things that Joan said was, it's not that people don't want to buy or sell a house. It's they don't want to buy or sell a house because of something. Okay. And we need to understand that context behind it. And part of that, is us wrestling down. Where are we in society? What's going on? We want to really make sure we understand ourselves, how we feel, how we're going to communicate with folks, how we plan to get through the next 2 months. And once we do that, we can really take care of everybody. You said it well. Our task is really to help people through a really big decision, a monumental. Everybody remembers when they bought their first house or their last house or when they sold something. We excel. We have to excel at being problem solvers, sounding board. We have to be the person that has all the answers. We have to be a guide and we have to be an expert. So there's a lot there. And I think we have to take care of ourselves first.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think one of the things that it took me a lot of years to learn, both in selling real estate, but even when I moved into kind of the managing side of things, is I would take on everybody's stuff and I would feel like it was my responsibility. And it took me a while to recognize how to create some space, like to not, as they call the term, not put their monkey on my back. It wasn't that I couldn't help them. But the thing is that the minute that I realized too that their situation or their struggles weren't necessarily my fault. Like I didn't get somebody into a tough spot or into a stressful situation, but I changed the lens. And what I learned was, but I'm the one that's going to help them. I'm the voice of reason to help them move past it. And so the minute I didn't feel like guilty or bad, like, ooh, maybe I caused something, but I changed my mindset to, I'm the one that's going to help empower them to move forward and do what they need to.
Yeah.
It changed the way that I looked at the business, and it allowed me, I think for all of us, and I don't know if any of you can, relate to this in the chat, but there is this dynamic or this power that we have to get as agents where we can create that separation. Like I tell people, there's this one area that people just can't get to with me, and I had to create that to keep my own sanity, right?
Yeah.
Don, to your point, to keep my own mindset, because I'm no good. If I'm terrible, then I'm no good for others,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that this actually tees up really well into, Brandy, talking a little bit about you and your business. And, I have to say, and I'm going to commend everybody that's on this call right now. I am so proud of how we have operated as at properties colleagues, as agents. There's been a lot thrown at all of you, and I know that Don and I are in the trenches to a certain degree with you, but you are the ones that are definitely interacting with the consumer and your clients the most, and have just done some extraordinary things this year. I think come together and supported one another as agents, have just risen above. But that's, it's exhausting, it's tiring, but I think one of the things you talked a lot about is, I think one of your biggest strengths, kind of from your upbringing, is just kind of how scrappy you are. Like, even when the chips are down and you're not feeling great, it's sort of always getting into that can-do attitude. Tell me a little bit more about kind of how you got that, maybe, and how you feel like it sort of served your clients and in really just kind of growing your business.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, we're amongst friends. I can be honest here. Frankly, I come from a pretty crazy background. We moved like every 9 months of my life. We moved to another town, rural America. I was a new kid in class every single year. Multiple parents, I mean, just like craziness, right? And part of the gift of that was I had to learn as a kid to step into every situation and learn how to read people, not just what they were saying, but their actions, their gestures, like everything. And I had to kind of like quickly learn how to be aware of the situation in order to meet them where they wanted me to meet them. So that I mean, frankly, as a kid, it was like, it was livelihood, you know what I mean? It was survival, right? Well, as an adult, I mean, I was an advertising executive for 12 years before I became a mom. So I've had several different careers, if you will, and it serves me so well because I'm able, I think one of the things that, what helps is that first being able to really listen, truly listen, like to the whole kit and caboodle, like literally step back and don't think that they're going to say what you think they're going to say. Like really stop and say, okay, what are they saying to me? What are the inflections that I'm hearing? Where are they? We meet people that are at all ages, at all stages of their life, some going through divorce, some excitedly welcoming their first kid. Like it runs the gamut, right? So being able to really understand where are they, what's motivating them. And if you can do that, then the ability is to say, okay, how do I problem solve now? Because you can't just start problem solving if you don't really understand the problem. So I mean, even though it's crazy that that's my background, and I don't wish that crazy dysfunctional poverty background on anyone, it helps me in life. We have a saying in my family. We drop the F-bomb a lot in this house. And even with my kids, I've got 2 in college and 1 in high school, and we have a saying called FITFO, and it's an acronym for figure it the fuck out. Sorry, can I say that?
Bleep for all of you that don't like that F, that, but I feel like understanding the appreciation of the FITFO, figuring the darn stuff out. Yes.
Figure it out. And no matter, it's not that you have all the answers. I don't have any of the answers, but I know that when you see what the problem is, then you're like, okay, I need to figure this part out. I need to call somebody who understands an HVAC. I mean, no matter what it is, it's like, it's just being resourceful and scrappy to figure it out. And, it's turned into a verb in our house. So like if somebody in our family chat will say something like, I can't figure out the emissions test. And it'll be like, well, you need to start FITFOing, like, so it's a verb now. And I will say, full disclosure, I have spent about 30 years as a grassroots organizer. And so politics is a passion of mine. And, to Don's point about, listen, you just make it happen, right? Last Wednesday morning at 8 a.m., I had a walkthrough. And at 9 a.m., I had a closing. And for the first time in 9 years, I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull it off. But
you did it.
We do. That's what we do, right? Anybody who does this job knows that that's what we do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the thing, is I think all of us, and you all in the chat too, think about a time where you actually probably surprised yourself, right? Because I think the thing about this business is it is 24/7, Monday nights Tuesday early in the morning, Saturday middle of the day, right? Like we have to still conduct our life around, the business. And there's always stuff that comes up, emotionally or stressfully. And, so I give us a lot of kudos. I don't think people outside of our industry really realize just how much we manage a lot of those things on the fly. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, first of all, what did you enjoy most from Expo, Brandy? You were there. I know you were there all day. Which speaker kind of blew your mind or gave you like an aha to, get excited to move forward, maybe finish up the year and look at 2025 with, a new lens?
Well, and we've got, looking at the fall, we've done some things that I'm happy to share, like just really trying to push us into a strong 2025. I was blown away by so many of our speakers for different reasons. They all brought something different at the table, and I took nuggets away of, okay, that's something and a lot of it is even, okay, I know that, I just need to do better, right? A lot of it. And I personally love, and as just resonates with what I've already shared about my background, I loved Phil Jones and talking about like the power of our words. I mean, like I will often say, even when I'm like training, like talking with like, I've trained some people over the years that are on my team, and sometimes it will be like, guys, okay, what, in the email, if you change this one word to this, think how that sentence feels differently to them, right?
Mhm.
And it's
Yep.
sometimes a single word. So I'm uber thoughtful and careful about language and words. At least I try, even though I drop the F-bomb. But that's authentically me, and that goes to like I have to be authentic. I know nothing else. But I thought Phil was amazing, but it was just so energizing, the whole thing.
Yeah. So what are you doing right now as you're wrapping up the year and you're thinking about next year? But what are some of the things that you're doing to make sure that you continue your momentum? Do you have any specific stuff that you're focusing on?
So I think anybody in this business knows that I personally feel that the success of this business hinges upon the strength of your relationships with your sphere. So
Mhm.
my team and we have just really focused on outreach to our sphere and deepening that, especially in a time of like, with NAR, with the election, there's a lot of different reasons to touch base. So we've really focused this right now in the last like couple months, and we're finishing up some things. I did I spent a lot of time and energy on a Glenview sphere focused mailed agent gatefold.
Mhm.
It was delivered a week ago, like in November, and it was about gratitude. Everybody who knows me knows that I'm just like, if my eyes open up in the morning, I'm like, sweet Jesus, let's do this, right? I mean, because I didn't have to open my eyes, right? So it's like, so it was really a gratitude focused. It was like top 10 things I love about Glenview, and it's like a picture of me in front of the Glenview house, like so, and that was delivered to about 400 of my sphere in Glenview. Um, we we renewed our AdWorks campaigns. We have annual sphere campaigns for everybody on my team. So if, our neighbor is looking at CNN, we pop up, and, so we
Yep.
just renewed those. And we also even hired a freelance social media manager and graphic designer to help, because that's one of my focuses for next year, to do a little bit better there. We're doing handwritten notes to walking them to neighbors, like kind of key neighborhoods, right? Like your own key neighborhood where you live, of wanting to make sure you're just thoughtful outreach. And I'm a firm believer that handwritten notes are key. We do handwritten notes for closing anniversaries.
Mhm.
Like, it's in your CRM. Like, I look ahead a couple weeks and say, okay, in 2 weeks is my closing anniversary for 123 Main Street. So I get that note in the mail. It's just
Yep.
more impactful than an email, right?
So
Um,
just kind of a lot of grassroots stuff, which I love. It's a lot of the things, like to your point, that we know we should be doing, but it's a difference from knowing I should do it and actually kind of getting it into action. And I know you've gotten some really great results from the gatefold that you just dropped. But again, it's something to hit your core group of people with, and then following up with I think, something more personal, right? Like a personal outreach in some fashion.
And I
Yep.
think I shared on our call last week that, there was an outreach to somebody and I was talking with them and they're like, oh, well, probably next year. And I'm like, well, let's talk about this. Let's strategize about that, And so then we got the ball rolling. We ended up saying, here's where we are, here's where the market is. You have a very unique special property. You might be able to hit the market in the spring and get somebody to do a lease back or whatever. You might get the terms that you want if we you set yourself up the best way we know how. And they were like, okay, that makes sense. So even though they weren't planning to do anything for a year, and this is like 2.5 million in Glenview, which is a really strong number, So now we got everything going. We got the house painted. We got new counter. I mean, right. We do all the stuff. Now
Yeah.
we've got photos and now we're totally ready to go. And that was just because of you can kind of, quite often you have people, especially at my age, I've got like where I am with my family. I've got 2 in college, 1 still in high school. So a lot of my sphere is kind of in a world where they're maybe thinking about next steps. So the sooner we're in front of them, reminding them that we're here to help you strategize through those next
Yeah.
steps, even if it's a couple of years in advance.
Yeah, it's like never too soon, right? And
No.
how many of you in the chat have had that happen? Because I know that I've had that happen where it's honestly, it's just kind of a very casual conversation because they're maybe thinking about the possibility of, and then your interaction has actually changed their time frame where all of a sudden it's like, wait, well, maybe we will look at doing it right now. So for all of you out there, think about that because I do really feel like election is done, right? We sort of at least know that. And, when we were listening to Marcy Russell and even from KCM, when we had our agent summits, there was a lot of information about maybe some decisions were delayed because of the election, but they weren't not going to happen. And so now that we've kind of passed that milestone, it is getting in front of these people because maybe you presenting them with some thoughts might get them off the fence sooner than what they would have done had you not presented it. So I
Yeah.
love that. And
You
Don,
know,
what are your thoughts on,
uh,
some things people should be thinking about now?
well, I love what Brandy was talking about. Too often we hear that once we get into the fourth quarter, tell me if you've ever heard this phrase, people start winding down their year. And the
Mhm.
reality is, and Brandy, what you just talked about was taking it to another level, really ramping up and prepping for first quarter, second quarter, a good year in 2025. Amy, you brought up Marcy Roselle. I thought one of the most important things she talked about was the lessening of the lock-in effect. And that really all it referred to is that so many people had really low interest rates that it made no economic sense to even buy up, buy down because they were going to be doing it at an interest rate that was 6, 7, 8%.
Mhm.
Every year, to her point was every year, the reason not to move gets less and less and less.
Yeah.
And prepping your pipeline, Brandy, like you're doing, is awesome. For everybody else, we're in November. In 2 weeks, we have Thanksgiving. It's a great time right now. What was the phrase you used, Brandy? Handwritten notes, just to say thank you. I appreciate you. I'm really glad you're in my life. Whatever. It's an amazing human touch, which we don't have enough of today. And I think what happens is more people then remember that you're a realtor, that you're a friend, that you're a guide, that you're a professional, and you'll get a call in January rather than June. So, there was a lot of really good inputs last week about why 2025 could be and maybe will be a good year. We got to prep for it right now, just like you're doing, Brandy.
Yeah, but I love what you said, Don, because I do think so many people sort of think, I just talked to an agent and she was like, well, I have one more closing and then my year is sort of done. And and I do think, look, this is in particular has been a big year, a long year for some people, I feel like. But imagine if you just did some additional outreach and really doubled down in November and December, you may not transact, but I agree with you. I think if you do something November, December, you're going to be far busier in January because otherwise you're waiting until January to do that outreach. So then you're capturing those people that are more inclined to do something, later in the year. So it
Yeah.
is kind of just you know, finding whatever extra momentum or oomph that you have, you know, right now, because I also think people are you know, they like the holidays. There's a lot of opportunity to get out and to be social, and having those opportunities to just be in front of people, to start conversations like Brandy, what you just shared, is huge, right? Can you believe it's already 9:30? But before we leave, I want each of you to give some kind of motivation or a pro tip to everybody out there. So Don, Shea, I'm starting with you. Pro tip,
I,
motivation. What are you giving
so many things,
everybody on this 11/11 as they get out there and get ready to slay the day?
so many things just ran through my mind. Here's what I think is most important. I've had a lot of coffee. Your challenge is to grow. Okay, you are supposed to be a resource. You're supposed to be the professional. Think of it as the partner. Okay, and in the next few months, I'm going to play off what Amy was just saying. Do not pull back. Here's the phrase I want you all to remember: be the mayor of your neighborhood. Be the person that people look to, that they ask questions of, that they come to for help. Okay, that way you're going to have a really wonderful presence, and it's going to be as a partner rather than a transactor. But you have to be present and you got to be engaged.
Love it. All right, Brandy, you're gonna have to top that, my girl.
know that.
Motivation, inspiration. What are you saying to all of your fellow peeps out there this morning?
No, I'm just kidding. Um, I, I've said, you know, it's been a very long year last week. That's been the line. You know, it's been a tough year, like on many, many different levels. But in my personal world, I do board of ed work, I do whatever, all kinds of different philanthropic, like whatever. I have a tagline on the bottom of my email, and I've had it there for 30 years. And it says, be the change you wish to see in the world.
Love it. And if that doesn't work, remember, just FITFO, right?
Exactly.
People? Just FITFO. On that note, if all else fails, that's what you need to remember moving in.
I see a bumper sticker in somebody's future.
I know.
Go, baby.
Oh my gosh. Well, Brandy, Don, thank you so much. Always such a pleasure chatting with you all. To everybody out there, make it a great week. Weather is supposed to still be beautiful, a little chillier, but beautiful sunshine here we have today. Leaves falling. Make it a great Monday, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. All right.
Thanks,
Bye,
Brandy. Thanks,
everybody.
Amy.